They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but in New York high society, it's best served with a side of vintage champagne and $1 billion smile. Preston really thought he had won. He had the beauty queen on his arm, the flashy car, and the arrogance of a man who thinks he's untouchable. He looked at his ex-wife, Camilla, and saw a woman he had discarded, a relic of his past. He didn't know that the man standing quietly in the shadows, holding Camilla's coat, wasn't just a date. He was the man who owned the very stage Preston was standing on. This is the story of how a discarded wife didn't just move on. She moved up and accidentally bought her ex-husband's future. The ink on the divorce papers was barely dry when Preston Waldorf made his debut with her. It wasn't a subtle introduction. It was a scorched earth campaign designed to erase 10 years of marriage in a single Instagram post. Camilla sat in her stripped-down apartment in the Upper East Side, the one she had fought to keep in the settlement, scrolling through the feed on her phone. Her hand trembled, not from cold, but from a mix of rage and humiliation. There was Preston, her husband of a decade, the man she had supported through law school, the man whose student loans she had paid off with her inheritance, the man whose image she had curated from messy frat boy to sleek corporate attorney. He was standing on the deck of a yacht in Saint-Tropez. His hand was resting possessively on the waist of a woman who looked like she had been manufactured in a laboratory dedicated to male fantasies. Jasmine Delacroix, Miss Connecticut runner-up, aspiring influencer, and 23 years old. The caption read, "Finally found a soul that matches my fire. New beginnings. Soulmate." Camilla felt a physical blow to her chest. It wasn't the younger woman that hurt the most. It was the soulmate tag. For 10 years, Preston had told Camilla that he didn't believe in labels and that romance was inefficient. Now, apparently, he was a poet. Her phone buzzed. It was her mother, arguably the coldest woman in Manhattan. "Did you see it? The Delacroix girl. Tacky, but effective. You need to get out of the house, Camilla. You look like a widow, and he's not even dead yet." "I'm fine, Mother," Camilla lied, her voice cracking. "You are not fine. You are 32, divorced, and your ex-husband is dating a billboard. You need a strategy." Camilla hung up. She didn't want a strategy. She wanted to disappear. Preston had left her with a speech that was etched into her memory. He had sat her down in their beige living room 3 months ago, looking at her with a pity that was worse than hatred. "It's not that you've done anything wrong, Cam," he had said, checking his watch as if he had a tea time. "It's just that, look at where my career is going. I need someone who projects vitality. You're comfortable. You're like a good cardigan. I need a sequined gown." A cardigan. That was her legacy. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers and boxes. Preston fought for everything, the art, the furniture, even the espresso machine. He claimed he needed the assets to maintain a lifestyle befitting a partner at the firm. In reality, Camilla knew he was leveraging everything to fund Jasmine. Jasmine wasn't cheap. A quick Google search revealed her brand required constant maintenance. Blowout appointments at Dry Bar, front row seats at Fashion Week, purchased, not invited, and a rotation of designer bags that Preston certainly couldn't afford on a junior partner's salary. But Preston was betting on himself. He was betting that having Jasmine on his arm would attract the high-roller clients he needed to make equity partner. He was investing in a trophy to win the race. Camilla was just the ballast he had cut loose to gain speed. 6 months later. If Preston was the fire, Camilla decided she would be the ice. She didn't dye her hair or get revenge plastic surgery. She went deeper. She went back to work. Before she was Preston's cardigan, Camilla had been an archivist for a prestigious historical society. She had a terrifyingly sharp memory and an eye for detail that missed nothing. She leveraged an old connection to land a job at Obsidian, a boutique private equity firm that specialized in high-value asset management for the ultra-wealthy. Her job wasn't glamorous. She was a glorified vetting officer. When a billionaire wanted to buy a castle in Scotland or a vineyard in Napa, Camilla was the one who flew out, checked the foundations, dug through the tax records, and ensured there were no skeletons in the closet. She loved it. It was quiet. It was precise. And it was far away from the gossip columns where Preston and Jasmine were currently documenting their engagement journey. It was a rainy Tuesday in November when she met him. She was in the firm's London office, reviewing the acquisition of a failing luxury car manufacturer. The conference room was empty, or so she thought. She was muttering to herself, pacing the floor with a thick file in her hand. "The debt-to-equity ratio is a disaster," she whispered to the empty room. "They're hiding liabilities in the subsidiary shell companies. It's a Ponzi scheme wrapped in leather seats." "I thought so too." A deep voice rumbled from the corner. Camilla jumped, dropping the file. Sitting in a high-backed leather chair, obscured by the shadows of the London dusk, was a man. He leaned forward into the light. He was older than Preston, perhaps early 40s. He had salt-and-pepper hair, sharp, almost wolf-like features, and eyes that were an unsettling shade of grey. He wore a suit that cost more than Camilla's car, but he wore it carelessly, with the top button undone. "I didn't know anyone was in here," Camilla stammered, quickly gathering her papers. "I'm just the analyst. I'll leave." "Stay," the man said. He didn't command it. He just stated it as a fact. "You think the car company is a bad buy?" "It's terrible," Camilla said, her professional instincts overriding her embarrassment. "They're projecting sales based on a prototype engine that hasn't passed safety regulations in 3 countries. Whoever buys this is buying a lawsuit, not a legacy." The man smiled. It was a small, crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes, but it felt genuine. "My advisors told me it was a bold entry into the automotive space. They used a lot of buzzwords. Synergy, paradigm shift." "Your advisors are idiots," Camilla said, then froze. "I mean, perhaps they are overly optimistic." "No, idiots was the correct term," the man said. He stood up and extended a hand. "Damien. Damien Roth." Camilla felt the blood drain from her face. Damien Roth, the ghost of Wall Street. The man who owned half of the skyline, but was rarely seen in public. He was the majority shareholder of Obsidian, her boss's boss's boss. He was worth, well, nobody really knew. The estimates ranged from God tier to GDP of a small country. "Camilla," she managed to say, shaking his hand. His grip was warm and firm. "I should get back to my desk, Mr. Roth." "Damien," he corrected. "And Camilla, send me that report on the car company. Directly to me. Bypass the committee." "Why?" "Because you're the only person in this building who isn't trying to sell me something." That was how it started, not with a romantic dinner, but with a forensic audit of a failing business. Over the next 3 months, Camilla became Damien Roth's secret weapon. He flew her to Tokyo to vet a robotics firm. He sent her to Milan to inspect a textile factory. They spent hours on private jets, not drinking champagne, but poring over spreadsheets. Camilla learned that Damien was a man of intense solitude. He had been married once, years ago, and lost his wife to illness. Since then, he had buried himself in the accumulation of power, not for the money, but for the control. He hated the limelight. He hated the Preston Waldorf types of the world, the peacocks. They grew close. It was a slow burn, built on intellectual respect. Camilla found herself laughing for the first time in years. Damien found himself actually listening. One evening in a private hangar in Teterboro, after a long flight from Dubai, Damien looked at her. "You never talk about your life before Obsidian," he said. "There's not much to talk about," Camilla deflected, looking out the window at the rain. "I was a cardigan." "Excuse me?" she told him. She didn't mean to, but the exhaustion and the comfort of his presence loosened her tongue. She told him about Preston, about the 10 years of sacrifice, about Jasmine, about being traded in for a newer model. Damien listened in silence, his jaw tightening. "He called you a cardigan?" Damien asked, his voice low. "Yes. Practical, boring, warm but unexciting." Damien reached across the small table between their seats and took her hand. It was the first time he had initiated physical contact that wasn't a handshake. "Camilla," he said, looking her dead in the eyes, "you are not a cardigan. You are the steel that holds the building up, and this Preston, he sounds like a man who mistakes glitter for gold." He paused, a strange glint in his eye. "What does he do, this Preston?" "He's a junior partner at Holloway and Finch. He's trying to break into the big leagues. He needs high-net-worth clients to make equity partner." Damien nodded slowly. "Holloway and Finch. Interesting. Why?" "No reason," Damien lied smoothly. "Come on, let's get you home. I believe you have a gala to prepare for." "I don't go to galas, Damien." "You do now?" he said. "The Metropolitan Charity Ball is next month. I'm the chairman this year. I need a date who can stop me from buying any more failing car companies." "Damien, I can't. Preston will be there. He and Jasmine. They're trying to make a scene. It's their debut as a power couple." Damien leaned back, that crooked smile returning. But this time it was dangerous. "Perfect," he said. "Then you absolutely have to come." Preston Waldorf was feeling, in a word, magnificent. He stood in the centre of the bespoke suit shop on Savile Row. He had flown to London just for the fitting, putting it on the credit card, admiring his reflection. The navy velvet dinner jacket was daring, but Jasmine had insisted. "You have to look like a king, baby," she had cooed, scrolling through TikTok on the velvet sofa. "We need people to stop staring at the Buffetts and the Musks and start staring at us." Preston checked his phone. His bank account balance was flashing red, a warning about his overdraft limit. He swiped it away. It didn't matter. He had just signed 3 new clients this month. Well, technically they hadn't signed yet, but they were verbally committed. They were friends of Jasmine's, people she knew from the pageant circuit and the modeling world. He was leveraging everything on the Metropolitan Charity Ball. The tickets cost $25,000 a plate. He bought a table for $250,000. It was money he didn't have, but it was an investment. If he could land Damien Roth as a client, he would be made. Rumor had it Roth was looking for new legal representation for his offshore holdings. If Preston could get 5 minutes with Roth, he could charm him. He was sure of it. "Babe," Jasmine said, snapping her gum, "did you send the invite to your ex?" Preston turned around. "Camilla, why would I do that?" "Because," Jasmine smirked, standing up and adjusting her tight dress. "It's a power move. If she doesn't show, she looks bitter. If she does show, she has to see this." She gestured to herself and then to him. "Plus, I heard she's working as some sort of secretary now. It'll be good for her to see what success looks like." Preston chuckled. It was cruel, but he liked it. He wanted Camilla to see him. He wanted to erase that look of pity she used to give him when he failed the bar exam the first time. He wanted to show her that he didn't need her stability. "You're bad," Preston said, kissing Jasmine. "I'm a queen," she corrected. Do it." So he did. Camilla received the invitation via courier. It was thick or cream-colored cardstock with gold leaf embossing. "Mr. Preston Waldorf and Miss Jasmine Delacroix invite you to join their table at the Metropolitan Charity Ball." There was a handwritten note at the bottom in Preston's jagged scrawl. "Thought you might like a night out. Bring a friend if you have one." P. Camilla threw it in the trash. "Don't do that," a voice said behind her. She was in her office at Obsidian. Damien was standing in the doorway. He walked over, fished the invitation out of the bin, and read it. "He invited you to his table?" Damien asked, his eyebrows raising. "That's aggressive." "He wants to humiliate me," Camilla said, turning back to her computer. "He knows I can't afford a ticket, let alone a gown that competes with whatever disco ball Jasmine is going to wear. He wants me to show up alone, look sad, and validate his life choices." Damien hummed, tapping the card against his chin. "The Metropolitan Ball. I believe I have the table directly next to the center stage. The Prime Minister's table." "Good for you," Camilla said. "Camilla," Damien said, dropping his voice. "I don't want you to go as my employee. I want you to go as my partner." Camilla froze. "Partner? Like business partner?" "No," Damien said softly. "I think we both know it's been more than business for a while now, but we haven't acted on it because of the work dynamic. But for one night, let's break the rules." He placed the invitation back on her desk. "Accept his invitation," Damien said. "What? Sit at his table?" "No, RSVP regrets only for his table. Tell him you already have a seat. Don't tell him with whom. He'll think I'm bluffing. He'll think I'm coming alone to stand at the bar." "Let him think what he wants," Damien said, his eyes cold and hard. "Preston Waldorf is playing checkers. We are going to play chess. And Camilla, I want you to go to the vault." "The vault?" "The Roth Family Trust Vault. My mother's jewelry. Wear whatever you want. If he wants a sequined gown, let's give him a constellation." Camilla looked at Damien. For the first time, she didn't see the billionaire. She saw a man who was angry for her. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because," Damien said, walking to the door. "I did some digging on Miss Jasmine Delacroix's modeling agency. It's a shell company, and I'm very curious to see Preston's face when he finds out who actually owns the debt he's marrying into." Camilla's eyes widened. "Damien, what did you do?" "Nothing illegal," he winked. "Just market research. Pick you up at 8. The Roth family vault wasn't in a bank. It was located 3 stories beneath Damien's townhouse on 5th Avenue, accessible only by a retinal scan and a voice key that required Damien to recite a line of poetry from Keats. "A thing of beauty is a joy forever," Damien murmured. The heavy steel doors hissed open. Camilla stepped inside and gasped. It wasn't just a safe, it was a museum. Velvet busts lined the walls, displaying jewelry that had graced the necks of Victorian duchesses and 1920s steel magnates' wives. "My grandmother was a magpie," Damien said, leaning against the doorframe, watching Camilla with an unreadable expression. She believed that jewelry wasn't decorative. She believed it was armor. She said, "Damien, when a woman wears true power around her neck, men stop looking at her chest and start looking at her eyes." He gestured to the room. "Choose." Camilla walked slowly down the aisle. She saw rubies the size of pigeon eggs and sapphires that looked like deep oceans. But her eyes landed on a piece in the center. It was terrifyingly beautiful, a necklace of white diamonds, cascading down like a waterfall, centering on a pear-shaped yellow diamond that seemed to hum with its own light. "The son of Andalusia," Damien said softly, appearing at her shoulder. It hasn't been worn since 1958. My grandfather bought it to apologize for an affair. My grandmother wore it to the divorce hearing. She won everything. It's perfect, Camilla whispered. It's heavy, Damien warned. It carries a lot of history. I've been carrying the weight of a dead marriage for 10 years, Damien. I think I can handle a few carrots. Damien smiled, a genuine, proud smile. He lifted the necklace and fastened it around her neck. His fingers lingered on her skin for a moment longer than necessary. You look dangerous, Camilla, he murmured near her ear. Good. For the dress, Camilla didn't go to the trendy designers Jasmine favored. She went to a discreet atelier in Paris via FaceTime, a contact of Damien's. They created a gown of midnight blue velvet. It was strapless, structured, and architectural. It didn't scream for attention. It commanded it. It was the antithesis of the cardigan. It was regal. On the night of the gala, as Camilla descended the stairs of Damien's townhouse, the staff actually stopped working to look. She wasn't just beautiful. She looked untouchable. Damien was waiting at the bottom of the stairs in a tuxedo that was cut to perfection. He looked up, and for a moment, the billionaire, the ghost of Wall Street, looked struck dumb. Well? Camilla asked, her heart pounding. Preston Waldorf is the biggest fool in New York City, Damien said, offering her his arm. And tonight, we're going to make sure he knows it. The Metropolitan Charity Ball was a zoo if the animals were covered in Swarovski crystals and desperate for validation. Preston and Jasmine arrived in a rented white limousine. It was flashy, dated, and loud, exactly like their entrance. Jasmine emerged first. She was wearing a sheer gold dress that left very little to the imagination. It was covered in sequins and feathers. It was a look, certainly, but it was a look that screamed reality TV, not old money. Preston followed, beaming. He adjusted his velvet jacket, waving to photographers who were mostly shouting for the actress behind them. "They love us!" Jasmine squealed, gripping Preston's arm. "Did you see the flashes?" "I saw them," Preston said, sweating slightly. He had just checked his phone. His credit card had been declined for the limo tip. He had to use cash from his emergency stash. "Listen, Jas, we need to work the room. I need to find Damien Roth. If I land him, we can buy the penthouse in Tribeca." "Relax, baby," Jasmine said, blowing a kiss to a confused security guard. "You're Preston Waldorf. You win. That's what you do." They made their way up the iconic steps, pausing for selfies every 3 feet. When they reached the top, Preston scanned the crowd. He saw his competitors, senior partners at other firms, hedge fund managers, tech bros in hoodies. "I wonder if she came," Jasmine snickered, scanning the crowd. "Camilla, I bet she's wearing something from the rack at Macy's." "She won't come," Preston said dismissively. "She doesn't have the spine. She's probably at home with a box of wine." Suddenly, the noise on the red carpet changed. It didn't get louder. It got silent. The chaotic shouting of "Look here! Look here!" stopped. A hush rippled through the press line, starting at the curb and moving up the stairs like a wave. Preston turned around, annoyed. "Who is it? The president?" A black town car, unmarked, sleek and understated, had pulled up. No chauffeur opened the door. The man inside opened it himself. Damien Roth stepped out. The flashbulbs went nuclear. The photographers were screaming his name with a reverence they didn't show the movie stars. Damien Roth never attended these things. This was a unicorn sighting. But then Damien turned back to the car and held out a hand. A woman stepped out. The crowd gasped. The midnight blue velvet absorbed the camera flashes, making her skin look like alabaster. The yellow diamond at her throat blazed like a star. She stood tall, her chin lifted, her hand resting lightly on Damien Roth's arm. "Who is that?" Jasmine whispered, her mouth falling open. "Is that a model?" That necklace. Preston, that diamond is huge. Preston squinted. The woman looked familiar. The way she walked, with a rhythmic, efficient grace. The tilt of her head. The woman turned to wave at the cameras, and Preston felt the ground drop out from under him. Camilla? He choked out. It couldn't be. Camilla was beige. Camilla was soft. Camilla was the woman who clipped coupons and worried about 401ks. This woman was a goddess. That's your ex-wife? Jasmine hissed, her grip on his arm turning into a claw. Why is she with Damien Roth? Why is she wearing the Andalusia diamond? The what? The necklace, you idiot! Jasmine snapped, her pageant training kicking in. I studied jewelry history. That's the Roth family diamond. It's priceless. It's for wives. Only Roth wives wear that. Preston felt bile rise in his throat. There must be a mistake. Maybe she's his assistant. Maybe she's working the event. But as they watched, Damien Roth leaned in and whispered something to Camilla. She threw her head back and laughed, a rich, throaty sound that Preston hadn't heard in 5 years. Damien placed a hand on the small of her back, a gesture of intimacy and possession that was unmistakable. They walked up the stairs, the sea of people parting for them. She's not an assistant, Jasmine said, her voice trembling with rage. She's the main event. And you told me she was a loser. She is, Preston insisted, though his voice cracked. She has to be. This is a stunt. Well, Jasmine straightened her feathers, her eyes narrowing. Let's go say hello. I want to see this up close. The ballroom was a kaleidoscope of wealth. The air smelled of expensive perfume and truffle oil. Preston and Jasmine found their table. It was table 42, located near the kitchen doors. It was a humiliation in itself. Preston had paid $250,000 to smell the caterers steaming the asparagus. In contrast, table 1, the Prime Minister's table, was center stage. And sitting there, directly to the right of Damien Roth, was Camilla. She looked comfortable. She was chatting with a senator, looking relaxed and witty. Every few minutes, Damien would touch her arm or refill her water glass. I'm going over there, Preston said, standing up after his third martini. Preston, don't, Jasmine said, though she was busy texting her friends, trying to find out if the necklace was real. I need to talk to Roth, and I need to know what the hell Camilla is playing at. Preston smoothed his velvet jacket and marched across the room. He felt the eyes of the room on him, or perhaps he just imagined them. He felt like a man walking into a propeller. He reached table 1. Security guards stepped forward, but Damien saw him and raised a hand, signaling them to stand down. Damien's expression was one of mild amusement, like a scientist watching a rat navigate a maze. Mr. Roth, Preston said, puffing out his chest. Preston Waldorf, Holloway and Finch. Damien looked at him, then looked at Camilla. I believe we have an acquaintance in common, Mr. Waldorf. Preston ignored Damien and looked at his ex-wife. Camilla, you look different. Hello, Preston, Camilla said. Her voice was cool, stripped of all the emotion she used to waste on him. You remember Damien? I didn't know you knew Mr. Roth, Preston said, his smile tight. Working late shifts at the archives? Actually, Damien interjected, his voice smooth as silk but hard as steel. Camilla advises me on high-risk acquisitions. She has a talent for spotting bad investments. She was just telling me about one. Is that so? Preston laughed nervously. Well, I'm actually here to talk business, Mr. Roth. My firm represents some of the top talent in the city. My fiancée, Jasmine Delacroix, is the face of Vortex modeling. We're poised for global expansion. Camilla took a sip of her champagne, hiding a smile. Damien leaned back in his chair, swirling his drink. Ah, yes. Vortex Modeling. The agency based in Soho specializes in influencers and pageant queens? Exactly. Preston beamed. It's a gold mine. Jasmine is the star asset. We're actually looking for a strategic partner to buy out the current debt and take us to the next level. The current debt, Damien repeated. You mean the $4.5 million in outstanding loans to the Cayman Islands Shell Corporation? Preston froze. How? How do you know that? Because I own the Shell Corporation, Mr. Waldorf, Damien said casually. The music in the ballroom seemed to stop for Preston. Excuse me? I bought the debt of Vortex Modeling 3 weeks ago, Damien explained, as if discussing the weather. My analysts, Camilla included, pointed out that the agency is technically insolvent. The talent is over-leveraged. The lifestyle costs exceed the revenue. It's a sinking ship. Preston looked at Camilla. She wasn't looking at him with anger. She was looking at him with pity. You own Jasmine's agency? Preston stammered. Technically, Damien corrected. I own Jasmine. Or rather, her contracts, her exclusivity rights, her image licensing, and by extension, the debt you countersigned for when you agreed to fund her lifestyle last month. Preston's knees buckled. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. He had signed as a guarantor for Jasmine's rebranding loan. He thought it was a formality. So, Damien continued, his grey eyes piercing Preston's soul, you are effectively asking me to invest in a company I already own, to support a woman whose career is currently my property, using money you don't have. Damien stood up. He towered over Preston. You treated Camilla like a liability, Preston. You traded a blue-chip stock for a penny stock because it was shiny. And now the market has corrected itself. Preston looked around. People were staring. Jasmine had walked up behind him, sensing the tension. What's going on? Jasmine asked, looking at Damien. Is he going to sign us? He owns us, Jasmine, Preston whispered, his face grey. He owns the agency. He owns the debt. Jasmine looked at Damien, then at the massive diamond around Camilla's neck. The realization hit her slowly. Her sponsor, the mysterious money behind her agency that she had never met, was the man dating the woman she had called a cardigan. Camilla! Preston pleaded, his arrogance evaporating instantly. Cam, you have to help me. If he calls the debt, I'm ruined. I'll lose the partnership. I'll lose the apartment. Camilla stood up. She smoothed her velvet dress. She looked at Preston, the man she had washed socks for, the man she had cried over. I'm sorry, Preston, she said, but that sounds like an inefficiency in your portfolio. You said you needed a sequined gown, not a cardigan. She took Damien's arm. I believe they're serving dessert in the garden, Camilla said to Damien. Shall we? We shall, Damien said. They walked away, leaving Preston and Jasmine standing in the wreckage of their own hubris, while the photographers captured every agonizing second of their defeat. But the story wasn't over, because a cornered animal bites back, and Preston Waldorf wasn't ready to go quietly into the night. The morning after the Metropolitan Charity Ball, Preston Waldorf didn't wake up to a hangover. He woke up to a nightmare. His phone had been buzzing incessantly since 6 a.m. He picked it up, squinting against the harsh morning light streaming into his unaffordable loft in Tribeca. He had 47 missed calls. 6 were from his managing partner at Halloway and Finch. 3 were from the bank. The rest were from reporters. He opened Twitter. It was worse than he imagined. A photo of him, sweating, red-faced, looking like a child being scolded by a teacher, was trending. Standing over him, looking like a Norse god of vengeance, was Damien Roth, and beside Damien, looking like a queen who had just ordered an execution, was Camilla. The headline on page 6 read, "The X Factor. Billionaire Roth crashes party, buys rival's debt, steals the show." "Damn it!" Preston screamed, throwing his phone across the room. It bounced off the exposed brick wall and landed on the imported rug. The bathroom door opened. Jasmine stood there. She wasn't wearing makeup, which was a bad sign. Jasmine never faced the day without her face. She looked pale, tired, and furious. "They're repossessing the G-Wagon," she said flatly. "I just got a call from the leasing company. They said the guarantor flagged the account for liquidation. You were the guarantor, Preston." "It's a mistake," Preston lied, scrambling out of bed. "I'll call the bank. It's just a glitch because of the misunderstanding last night." "Misunderstanding?" Jasmine laughed, a shrill, hysterical sound. "Preston, Damien Roth owns my face. He owns my name. I called my agent this morning to book a damage control interview. She told me I'm not allowed to speak to the press without written consent from the parent company. Obsidian Holdings. Roth's company." She walked over to him, her eyes cold. "You told me you were a player. You told me you were going to make partner. You're broke. You're a joke. And now, thanks to you, I'm an indentured servant to your ex-wife's boyfriend." "I can fix this," Preston yelled, grabbing her shoulders. "Jasmine, listen to me. Roth made a mistake. He humiliated me in public. That's tortious interference. It's defamation. I can sue him. I can sue Camilla." "Sue them?" Jasmine scoffed. "With what money? You can't even afford the gas for the car they're taking away." "I know things," Preston said, his eyes darkening. A desperate, ugly plan was forming in his mind. Camilla signed a non-disclosure agreement when we divorced regarding my firm's clients. But I know things about her, too. I know about the archives. I know about the Obsidian vetting process. If I leak that Camilla is using confidential data to help Roth target companies, that's insider trading. Or at least, I can make it look like insider trading. You want to frame her? "I want leverage," Preston hissed. "If I threaten to blow up her reputation, Roth will back off. He values privacy more than money. He'll forgive the debt to keep me quiet. He'll write us a check just to make us go away." Jasmine looked at him. For a moment, Preston thought she was going to leave him. But then, a slow, predatory smile spread across her face. She was a survivor, after all. "Make it a big check," she said, "and do it fast. Because if I lose my Sephora sponsorship, Preston, I will personally destroy you before Roth even gets the chance." Preston dressed quickly. He put on his war suit, charcoal grey, power tie. He headed to the office, ignoring the paparazzi camped outside his building. He walked into Holloway and Finch with his head held high, acting like nothing was wrong. He went straight to his office and locked the door. He didn't log into his work computer. He knew IT would be monitoring him. He pulled out a burner phone he had bought from a bodega on the way over. He dialed a number for a journalist at the Financial Times, a man known for hating Wall Street billionaires. "This is an anonymous source," Preston whispered, his heart hammering against his ribs. "I have information about Damien Roth and Camilla Waldorf. They're rigging acquisitions, market manipulation. I have proof." He didn't have proof. He had a few out-of-context emails Camilla had sent him during the divorce regarding her work schedule, which he planned to doctor. It was fraud. It was dangerous. But Preston was a cornered rat. What Preston didn't know was that in the world of high-stakes surveillance, there are no anonymous burner phones, not when you are targeting a man who owns the satellites. Camilla sat in the solarium of Damien's penthouse, watching the rain fall over Central Park. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm raging in the media. Damien was on a call in the library. Camilla could hear the low rumble of his voice, calm and authoritative. She felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She had enjoyed the moment at the gala. Seeing Preston's face crumble had been cathartic. But now, the reality was setting in. Preston was vindictive. She knew him better than anyone. He wouldn't just fade away. Her laptop pinged. An email. Subject: coffee. From J.D. via iPhone. Camilla frowned. J.D. Jasmine Delacroix. She opened the email. He's going to lie to the press. He's forging emails to make it look like you're leaking insider info to Roth. He's at the office now. He's crazy. I want out. Jasmine. Camilla stared at the screen. Betrayal. It seemed to be the theme of the month. Jasmine was turning on Preston to save her own skin. Camilla stood up and walked into the library. Damien looked up, saw her face, and immediately ended his call. What is it? Preston is trying to frame me for insider trading, she said, handing him the laptop. Jasmine just flipped on him. Damien read the email. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. Predictable, Damien sighed. I expected him to try blackmail. I didn't think he'd be stupid enough to try federal crimes. If he goes to the press with faked emails, it will cause an investigation, Camilla said, her voice rising. Even if we're innocent, Obsidian hates scrutiny. The board will be furious. My career will be over while they investigate. He knows that. He's counting on the chaos, Damien agreed. He wants a settlement. We should call the police, Camilla said. No. Damien stood up, buttoning his jacket. Police take time. Lawyers take time. And frankly, Camilla, I'm tired of this man occupying space in your life. It's time to evict him permanently. What are you going to do? Damien walked over to a safe behind his desk. He pulled out a single, thick red folder. Do you remember when you asked me why I was so interested in Holloway and Finch? Damien asked. Yes. You said it was market research. It was. Damien smiled, but it was a cold smile. I've been looking to acquire a top-tier litigation firm for my conglomerate. It saves money on outside counsel. Holloway and Finch has been struggling with liquidity for months. They were ripe for a hostile takeover. Camilla's eyes widened. Damien, did you buy the firm? The ink dried this morning at 9 a.m., Damien said. Technically, I am now the owner of the building Preston is sitting in. I am the owner of the server he is using, and I am the employer he is currently trying to defraud. He handed the red folder to Camilla. This is the termination notice, Damien said, and the eviction order. I think it would be poetic if you delivered it. Camilla looked at the folder. It was heavy. It felt like a weapon. I can't go there alone, she whispered. You won't be alone, Damien said. I'm coming with you, and I believe Jasmine is ready to meet us there. She wants to negotiate her surrender. The conference room at Holloway and Finch was glass-walled, offering a panoramic view of Manhattan. Usually, this view made Preston feel like a king. Today, it felt like he was in a fishbowl. He had gathered the senior partners. He had spun a frantic tale about how he was the victim of a billionaire's vendetta and how they needed to back him to protect the firm's reputation. Roth is out of control, Preston shouted, slamming his hand on the mahogany table. He's attacking me personally. If we don't counter-sue, he'll come for the firm next. The senior partner, a grey-haired man named Mr. Sterling, looked uncomfortable. He kept checking his watch. Preston, Sterling said slowly, we appreciate your passion, but accusing Damien Roth of market manipulation based on these. He gestured to the grainy printouts of emails Preston had concocted. It's risky. It's not risky, it's necessary, Preston insisted. We file the suit today. We leak the story tonight. We put him on the defensive." Suddenly, the glass doors slid open. The room went silent. Camilla walked in. She was wearing a white suit this time, crisp, sharp, and blindingly bright. Behind her walked Damien Roth, flanked by two large men in dark suits, and trailing behind them, looking sheepish and holding a Starbucks cup, was Jasmine. "What is this?" Preston sputtered, standing up. "Security! Get them out of here! This is a private meeting!" "Actually," Damien said, his voice booming effortlessly across the room, "it's a staff meeting, and you're late." Mr. Sterling stood up. He didn't call security. He bowed his head slightly to Damien. "Mr. Roth, welcome. The transition team told us to expect you." Preston looked between Sterling and Damien. "Transition team? What is he talking about?" Camilla stepped forward. She placed the red folder on the table. "Preston," she said calmly, "as of this morning, Obsidian Holdings has acquired a controlling interest in Holloway and Finch. Mr. Roth is the new chairman of the board." Preston's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. "No, that's impossible. We're independent." "You were broke," Damien corrected, "and your partners were very happy to cash out. You would have known this if you had checked your company email this morning instead of playing spy with a burner phone." Damien tapped a button on the remote control for the room's screen. A video feed appeared. It was security footage from 20 minutes ago. It showed Preston in his office, doctoring the emails on his laptop. "Our IT department, which I now own, flagged suspicious activity," Damien said. "Forging documents to blackmail the chairman of the company is gross misconduct, Preston. It's also a felony." Preston looked at Jasmine. "Jasmine, tell them we're together." Jasmine took a sip of her coffee and looked at her nails. "Actually, Preston, I'm cooperating with the internal investigation. Mr. Roth has kindly agreed to restructure my debt if I provide a truthful account of your financial fraud regarding my loans. Did you know it's illegal to list client funds as personal collateral? Because Mr. Roth's lawyers say it is." Preston slumped into his chair. It was over. The walls were closing in. Camilla walked around the table until she stood directly behind him. She leaned down, her voice a whisper that only he could hear. "You told me I was a cardigan," she said. "You were right. I am. I'm durable, I'm practical, and I'm still here. You, Preston? You're just a cheap suit, and you're out of style." "You're fired, Preston," Mr. Sterling said from the head of the table. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 5 minutes to clear your desk. Leave the company phone." Preston stood up. He looked at his partners, who refused to meet his eye. He looked at Jasmine, who was already smiling at Damien, hoping for a favor. He looked at Camilla, who looked stronger than he had ever seen her. He walked to the door, his legs heavy. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a fiancée. He didn't have a job. As he reached the glass doors, Damien spoke one last time. "Oh, and Mr. Waldorf?" Preston turned. "I'm keeping the espresso machine." 6 months later. The fall of Preston Waldorf was not a sudden drop. It was a slow, agonizing slide into irrelevance. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Hackensack, New Jersey. The fluorescent lights of Miller & Son's personal injury law hummed with a headache-inducing buzz. Preston sat at a desk that was too small for him, surrounded by stacks of files regarding slip-and-fall cases at local grocery stores. "Waldorf," his new boss, a man with coffee stains on his tie, bellowed from across the room. "The client in the fender bender needs that affidavit filed by 3. Stop staring at your phone and do the job I'm paying you minimum wage for." Preston flinched. He quickly minimized the browser window on his phone. He had been looking at the New York Times style section. There, gracing the digital front page, was a headline that made his stomach turn. "The New Age of Philanthropy," How Camilla Waldorf is rewriting the rules of giving. The photo showed Camilla cutting a ribbon at a gala. She wasn't wearing the heavy historical diamonds of the Roth family this time. She was wearing a simple, elegant cream suit. Her hair loose, smiling with a radiance Preston realized he had never seen in their 10 years of marriage. She looked free. He looked around his dingy office, smelled the stale coffee, and felt the crushing weight of his own choices. He had traded a diamond for a rhinestone because the rhinestone sparkled more under the club lights. Now the lights were off, and he was left in the dark. Manhattan was blooming. The tulips along Park Avenue stood like soldiers in bright red and yellow uniforms. High above the city, in the Obsidian Holdings headquarters, Camilla walked down the corridor of the newly established Charitable Trust Division. She wasn't carrying coffee for anyone today. 2 assistants trailed behind her, taking notes as she dictated the terms of a new grant for historical preservation in the outer boroughs. "Make sure the grant specifically covers digitization of the archives," Camilla said, her voice steady and authoritative. "If we don't save the records, we lose the history. And check the ventilation standards for the storage facility. I don't want to see any humidity damage reports next quarter." "Yes, Ms. Waldorf," the assistants chorused. She dismissed them at the door to the private roof garden. This was her sanctuary. When Damien had acquired Holloway and Finch and absorbed it into his empire, he hadn't just given Camilla a job, he had given her a platform. He recognized that her boring obsession with details was actually a superpower in the world of large-scale philanthropy, where oversight was everything. She sat on a teak bench, overlooking the skyline. The air smelled of wet earth and expensive possibilities. A shadow fell over her. She looked up to see Damien. He looked different than the man she had met in that London conference room. The sharp, wolf-like tension in his shoulders had softened. He had just closed the final chapter on the Holloway acquisition, effectively erasing the last remnants of the toxicity that had plagued the firm. "You're hiding," Damien said, a playful glint in his grey eyes. He sat down next to her, loosening his silk tie. "I'm strategizing," Camilla corrected, closing her folder. "There's a difference. How was the board meeting?" "Boring," Damien admitted. "They're happy about the profits, but they're complaining about the new ethics compliance measures you suggested. They say it slows down the deal flow." "Good," Camilla smiled. "Fast deals make for messy audits. You taught me that." Damien chuckled, reaching out to take her hand. His thumb traced the line of her knuckles. "I think you've been teaching me lately, Camilla. I used to look at a company and see numbers, assets, liabilities, potential yield. You look at them and see the people. You see the legacy." He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. For a split second, Camilla's heart stuttered. Was this it? A ring? Damien saw her expression and smirked. "No, not a ring. Not yet. I told you, I don't do things the way Preston did. I don't buy props to show you off. I buy things that let you be you." He pulled out a heavy, antique brass key. It was tarnished with age, hanging on a velvet ribbon. "What is this?" Camilla asked, taking the cold metal in her palm. "I made a trip to the New York Public Library this morning," Damien said softly. "I had a meeting with the Board of Trustees. It seems they've been looking for a donor to fund the restoration of the 19th century map room. It's been closed to the public for 40 years because they couldn't afford the climate control systems." Camilla gasped. The map room. It was legendary among archivists, a treasure trove of history that had been rotting in the dark. "I funded the restoration," Damien continued, watching her face intently, "in full. But there was a condition. The wing is to be renamed. It's going to be the Camilla Waldorf Center for Historical Preservation. And this," He tapped the key. Is the master key. You have lifetime access. You can go there whenever you want, open any case, read any map. It's your library, Camilla. Tears pricked Camilla's eyes, hot and fast. This was infinitely better than a diamond. Preston had called her a cardigan because she liked comfort and history. He had mocked her for being dusty. Damien had just bought her a palace for her dust. He wasn't trying to change her. He was enshrining her. You bought me a library wing, she whispered, her voice trembling. I invested in excellence, Damien corrected firmly. You were never the woman in the background, Camilla. You were the foundation. Preston was just too stupid to realize that if you crack the foundation, the whole house falls down. He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. He wanted a sequined gown, Damien murmured, leaning in close. He wanted something that sparkles for a night and then falls apart. I want the history. I want the story that never ends. I want the cardigan, the library, the mind, and the woman. Camilla laughed, a sound that felt like victory. She leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't a showy kiss for the cameras. It was deep, solid, and real. I love you, Damien, she said against his lips. I know. He smiled against hers. Now come on. We have a plane to catch. I hear the wine in Tuscany tastes better when you're celebrating a victory. They stood up together, hand in hand. Below them, the city churned, a mix of winners and losers, predators and prey. But up here, in the garden, they had built on the ashes of the past. Everything was clear. Preston Waldorf was a footnote in a legal brief in New Jersey. Camilla Waldorf was the headline. And as they walked back inside, the brass key swung gently against her chest. A heavy, permanent reminder that the best revenge isn't just surviving. It's thriving so brightly that the people who hurt you have to wear shades just to look at you. And that is how Camilla went from being a discarded cardigan to the woman who held the keys to the city. It's a brutal reminder that when you trade loyalty for vanity, you usually end up bankrupt in both love and money. Preston Waldorf learned the hard way that you should never underestimate the person who knows where all the bodies are buried, especially if she's dating the man who owns the shovel. What do you think? Did Preston deserve a harsher punishment, or was working as a paralegal in New Jersey enough justice? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of high society revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And subscribe for more stories of karma served cold. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.